Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to Love and Life Elevated. My name is James.
And I'm Deborah.
And we are so excited to be with you. And you know what? We're on a roll, honey. 2 weeks in a row now.
Woo!
We're feeling really good about this. And I love this topic this week, honey, because it's something that you and I were learning about back in school. And it's had this literally a cult following, not just in functional medicine, but now it's found its way into traditional medicine circles. And what's so beautiful about this experience of learning about the microbiome, there's no place in your life it doesn't offer benefit when you get an understanding of what it is that you can do every single day to really improve the quality of your digestion, augment the efficiencies of digestion, and really thinking about the ecosystem that is your microbiome.
Yeah, I was going to say we need to back up a little because you kind of just threw it out there without saying what we're talking about. And we are talking about the microbiome. And to your point, this is something that it's such a huge part of naturopathic medicine. And when we were in school, first of all, the term itself wasn't coined until the 2000s. So this is after we graduated. So
Yeah.
we never talked about it as microbiome, but we talked about poop a lot. And we talked about gut health. We always just talked about gut health, and we learned so much so that I think we drove our families absolutely crazy.
Especially when we asked our parents about how their pooping was going. And
well,
they're
at the dinner table while we're having dinner.
Well, it's interesting, right? Because when I was teaching a lot of functional medicine stuff back in the late 90s, traveling around the world and teaching, it wasn't yet there yet. So I was just talking about digestion. I talk about flora. I talk about all the different things that are happening.
You talked a ton about inflammation.
Yes.
Gut inflammation.
And leaky gut syndrome and all these things. And then permeability sort of came in. Then somewhere about 2002, 2003, and I was still teaching a lot of these same clinicians and physicians, I brought in this word microbiome. They're like,
you didn't originate the word.
No.
Oh, I thought you introduced it to the docs. To the docs.
Yeah.
Got it.
And when they did, they're like, where did that come from? Well, this is the state of functional medicine. And I'm so happy to hear 20 plus years later, this has become a foundational understanding of what makes everyone thrive.
Gosh, there isn't any health condition that doesn't improve when your gut is healthy, right? It is the be-all, end-all of let's start here, whether it's hormone dysfunction, whether it's a mood instability, of course, obviously, if it is a digestive disturbance, you got to start there. Mm-hmm. But people forget that a lot, and they're like, oh, I have a headache, I got to take an Advil for that. They don't think of where's that coming from? And same thing, I know we're going to talk about stress today and how, it's a double-edged sword in terms of what comes first. Is it that you have a stressful situation and then the gut responds, or is it that your gut's already in disturbance and then you are more stressed as a result? So let's get into it.
Yeah, so I think one of the best things you can hopefully walk away with today is the understanding of how digestion is the fulcrum of your well-being, and the microbiome is the ecosystem that allows this digestive opportunity to literally allow every part of your life to flourish. So one of the big things I'd love to start with today is how do we look at the practices that we know have been scientifically and clinically proven to improve our digestion? Because I think we could talk a ton about the things that assault it, things like stress, processed foods, antibiotics, overuse of antibiotics, I should say, and all the things that are happening in the environment, the pollutants, the toxins, all that stuff. All those things are assaults. So I think we could begin with, how do we look at the microbiome as a place where we get a chance to begin by cleaning up our whole environment, thinking about everything from when we eat and how we eat, the mindfulness practices behind we eat. But where would you like to start? Because when you're working with patients, particularly around, and you do a lot of work right now with people who are suffering with digestive issues, and it's manifesting in all these different ways, how do you begin working with someone?
Love this question. And if I may apologize and step back just a minute, I feel the need to actually define microbiome because we kind of passed over that. So when we are talking about microbiome, why it's called biome, and it's not just a gut. What it means is it's the trillions of bacteria that we have circulating in the gut, but not just bacteria, but it's like yeast, fungi, other critters, but it's mostly we're talking about that combination of bacteria that's circulating, and then also all of the cells that are responsible then for producing things like our neurotransmitters, serotonin, dopamine. So I would like to start there and now address what you're talking about. Where do we start when someone comes to us with any myriad of health complaints, especially if they're in the gut? Of course, you have to do a lifestyle and diet and health history overview, because sometimes you can just nip it in the bud with that, right? Oh, it's so clear. This is what's going on, right? Other times it's a huge mystery, and you need to go through maybe some testing, some stool analysis to see where we can break down. Are there some unhealthy bacteria? Are there some parasites? Are there yeast? What's going on actually? I love it because you really get a picture of what's happening inside the body. I don't really know a better way to do that. Because a blood test doesn't necessarily tell us what's going on in there. And while, sorry to talk about stool a lot. Some of you may hate that. But you can look at things, say, like serotonin in the stool. But that isn't the best way to analyze serotonin, because most of it is absorbed in the gut. And what it relies on, because of that gut-brain connection to get serotonin into the brain, is your favorite, the vagus nerve.
Right, right. So I think that brings in a combination of looking at what we're doing from a lifestyle standpoint,
100%.
like how are you eating and the foods that you're bringing in, looking at a whole foods diet, looking at fiber and how important that is, looking at clean, lean proteins and really being leery of proteins that bring in different exogenous estrogens and other challenges associated with high farming practices versus local farming practices. All of that plays a giant role in how your body assimilates and builds upon that environmental opportunity. And I think the big thing that I'm always working on is looking at sugar and alcohol alongside of that too, because sugar is where yeast and candidiasis and all kinds of other things proliferate. And the more that we bring in sugar, not only is it assaulting the microbiome, it's also assaulting the way the microbiome can produce serotonin. And there's a direct link to sugar consumption and depression. So you're saying, well, is it a chicken or the egg? Well, I think it's both the chicken and the egg. So you got to really think about my processed food intake. When I'm working with patients or people I'm coaching, I always say, first and foremost, let's look at how we can clean up your entire environment. Let's start in your pantry. Let's look in your refrigerator. And I also love to say, let's look around your life. What type of environmental toxins are you allowing in the form of stress, media, people, different things that get you going in a very unfortunate sort of fight or flight way, and how that impacts directly and assaults the health of your microbiome. And one thing I was really reading about just recently, and I think I have a little thing I wanted to read here, honey, because this is interesting in the relationship to kind of cleaning up your environment and how it impacts your microbiome. Saying grace or just taking a few breaths before you eat and literally kind of centering and slowing down your nervous system, kind of getting yourself back into balance. Here's what it does when you do this before you eat. It promotes mindful eating, which is sort of obvious when I slow down, but also calms the nervous system, literally helps to lower cortisol. And while you're doing that, it increases digestive enzymes. Saying grace or having a prayer or a breathing practice before you eat literally gets your pancreas to be more impactful in producing enzymes. Also acts in helping to improve satiety, so you register like I'm full and don't overeat. And on top of that, it enhances our nutrient absorption, impacting our immune function, our psychological well-being, and our emotional overall way in which we see how we are sort of taking care of ourselves. There's so much going on with kind of centering around your practice of eating and being mindful. And all the things I think we'd all say, oh my God, I'd love to have more of that. I'd like to have less of that. Look at just how it is that you begin each and every meal and really center yourself around that idea of just getting centered, quiet, and then allowing your body to do what it loves to do.
I love that so much. And in your research, did it bring in the vagus nerve? Is it because some of that centering? Because it reminds me of like meditating before you take that
It's exactly what they talked to. They said once the vagus nerve is stimulated, whether it's with breathing, whether it's a prayer, whether it's grace, all of that enhances the patency and the strength of your vagus nerve. So between the brainstem working all the way down into your digestive tract, it literally is a centering, lowering the stress hormones, and allowing your body to say, exhale, receive. That is a huge part of how the vagus nerve really kind of helps us move back into a balanced place. And for anyone who's saying, well, that sounds too easy, or I haven't done something like that, that's a really interesting way to begin, right? Because it is easy. And if you don't do it, this is an easy thing to bring in. And for some of us, and sweetheart, you and I've got some great stories about bringing people over into our world for dinner and doing everything from singing grace to saying grace. And it's a big part when we're sitting down with people. We don't change who we are. We hope to invite who we are. And everyone seems to really enjoy that idea of just taking a mindful moment and giving yourself permission to feel grateful before you eat.
Mm-hmm.
What have I got there?
Just a little something. Anyway.
That's 32 years of marriage right there. I love that.
Well, sometimes not everyone is comfortable with that idea, right? And you can sometimes feel that out and sense that. And think about if you're alone, that the experience of eating alone is so awesome and uncomfortable and scary. But say you're having dinner with new friends or a group of strangers, and you're kind of just the new people being invited in, and you have this practice, but maybe you don't feel comfortable to say, hey, is everyone okay with like a moment of grace? It's so easy just to pause yourself.
Reach across, hold hands if that's okay,
no, but
right?
even if like you're not feeling that from the group,
sure.
For yourself, take that moment and give thanks inside yourself right in that moment, and whatever it is that connects you to the experience you want to have with the meal, how you want to feel, it's very powerful, right?
Yeah.
And it also goes, I'm kind of stretching it, but it ties into that practice of Hari Hachi Bu, which is stopping eating when you're 80% full. If you set that intention and before you eat, in addition to all the things that you just covered, like you're more likely to find that satiety or that fullness well before you would have had you not taken that time, and you're just chatting away and you're not even paying attention to what you're shoving in your mouth. So everything, you're going to digest your food better, you're going to feel better, and then the side effect is that you're going to feel better in your mood.
Yes.
Too.
So one thing I'd love to just bring in there, because the study also talked about the fact that when people eat in front of the news, or while you're watching the news at nighttime or in the morning, you literally decrease the digestive enzymes, you're increasing the cortisol, you're literally assaulting your microbiome, and the body's ability to assimilate those nutrients and put them to work is literally compromised dramatically. So if there's anything we walk away with today, whether you're not ready for grace, you're not ready for prayer or a mindfulness breath before dinner, just do not eat in front of the television, particularly stressful things on television, which any news is stressful these days, so just mindfulness around that.
So a big question that I get, well, let's start off. When I take in a new patient, I have a huge health history form. It's way too many pages, like 8 pages that you fill out. But in that list of pages, I asked for people to write down what supplements that they're taking. And so often you all are on a probiotic. And we think because probiotics got so popular that everyone should be on a probiotic. And I, for one, am someone who is not in that camp. Now, listen, if you have a history of having been on a lot of antibiotics, then yes, a probiotic is probably really important for you. This is why I really like to do a stool analysis first to kind of get an idea of where your bacteria are. Are you deficient? Number one, do you have overgrowth? I'm sure you've heard of SIBO, or small intestine bacterial overgrowth. A lot of symptoms of IBS are linked to SIBO.
Right.
But SIBO, interestingly enough, is a breath test. It's not a stool test. So there's so many unknowns that to just pop a random probiotic without really knowing what's going on in your gut isn't maybe the best solution, in my opinion. Now, if you're traveling outside the country, maybe pack a shelf-stable probiotic, because you never know if you're going to eat something that, or drink something that doesn't agree with you, then you've introduced maybe a bad bacteria, and good bacteria would be good. So why don't you want to just randomly take probiotics? Because aren't they good for everyone? It's because you don't want that too much of a good thing, right?
It's all about balance.
It balances, and then you can actually introduce bad bacteria as a result. You can introduce gas, bloating, So I would just say make that a more informed decision. And it's not, when I have patients that go on probiotics, I say, this isn't like I want you on probiotics the rest of your life. This is more like, let's get it rebalanced, and then we retest and go from there.
I love that. And I think one of the ways that we can help to ensure or really optimize the ability to navigate without having to use probiotics. Maybe you've done your stool, you've done the breath test for SIBO, but really looking at just a broad variety of plant fibers in your diet, fermented foods in your diet.
Right.
The more that we really eat a broad variety of highly nutritious, highly fibrous, I'll call it just alive food, the more our microbiome is going to flourish with that. So I think before we think about like where we jumping into supplements or jumping into probiotics, just do your own sort of analysis of how well you're eating. Where's your variety of eating? How are you doing with all those things? Because what's beautiful about the microbiome in your digestive tract, it wants to find its own equilibrium. And when it's out of balance, because we've probably been focusing too much in one area versus a broad variety, and then we have something called dysbiosis. And dysbiosis simply means I have more bad guys than I have the good guys. But if you start eating more broad and variety of foods, this dysbiosis often takes care of itself. It literally finds this new healthy balance again. And that is a dynamic process. So every single day you get an opportunity to really think about, how am I going to be feeding my digestive tract? What are the foods that really optimize my serotonin levels through getting my gut in a healthy place? And really looking at how you can do this every single day with a more mindful approach versus an efficiency approach. And I think that's a big deal, because when we've seen dysbiosis really came on, it's when we were really moving out of whole foods eating back in the 50s and 60s, and then starting to eat highly processed foods later in the 60s, 70s, and early 80s. And now, let's face it, there are food deserts everywhere, and processed foods are everywhere. The most convenient foods are usually the most processed ones. All of that is impacting us.
And lacking fiber in
Right.
those processed foods. So you brought that up, and having a really healthy mix of soluble and insoluble fiber. So it's not like, oh, well, I'm just doing this fiber supplement. It's like, no, that's why eating, your 9 servings, fruits and veggies, maybe you got 2 fruits, 7 veggies, whatever you can do to mix that up. But then you also have the fiber from your nuts and seeds, your whole grains, and you're really mixing up the type of fiber. And even things like, I love some of the coffee drinks that are made with chicory. You've got some inulin, just some artichoke, and like you already mentioned, the fermented foods.
Yeah.
So
these are all great things to think about as you look at something that Deb and I were talking about this morning, is that what is September all about? Well, interesting enough, September, from more of a metaphysical standpoint, talks about the harvest, right? We all know this is a time when farmers are bringing in the crops, September, October. But interesting enough, there's also an idea around this from different religious traditions, is that September is a time when we root ourselves in all the things that we've learned over the past year. In September, we bring these things home. We bring the practices home. And I'd really like for calling all of us up, not calling us out, but to call us up and really look at the things that you've learned and the things that you know really are working for you, and put these into practice at a deeper, more mindful level. I think the thing I love most about how integrated medicine and functional medicine, spiritual practices, and all these things really do, they give us a chance to have self-awareness, self-compassion, self-acceptance, and then a self-determination theory, which is simply following through on the things that we know. And let's face it, for a lot of us, this is a challenging time, what's going on in the world. How do we impact our own microbiome to build greater resilience, greater positivity, greater optimism? We do it through taking care of ourselves and honoring the things that we know work, and then being a heroic witness to seeing ourselves follow through with what works.
I love that you brought in this month of harvest in September, and while technically we're still in the summer, it's also, you can just see that fall is right around the corner. We have leaves already starting to change. We have that crispness coming into the evenings, and we know we're not done with summer yet. But what that reminds me of with fall and preparation is transformation. When you see the leaves changing color, you see the leaves even falling off the trees. Like, what are we going to be shedding come this fall as we then even turn
Love
into
that.
winter? I'm not trying to get, lose time here or get ahead of ourselves, but it is a beautiful metaphor for healing and taking this time. I know sometimes we're just here to enjoy the summer. We've worked hard all spring to get in shape for that, but then summer, we're just here to have fun. I mean, we sort of ignore some of the signs and symptoms that may have been creeping up, but fall is a time to like get to work. And what I mean by that is like you're harvesting harvesting your energy, you're preparing for transformation, and we're here to cheer you on. We're here to support you, and hopefully you've gained a little something from our talk today.
Yeah, and I think the best thing you can do right now is to potentially, when we say goodbye, just take a few moments and write down the things that you've done really well this year so far. Just write them down. Self-recognition is powerful. And then see there are areas where you go, wow, that's really good, and here's another area that I can see really improving based on this. And when you do that, you literally have building a roadmap for yourself. And it was really interesting when I look at some of the things I've learned over these last number of years with everything from functional medicine to being in relationship and being really connected to the circadian rhythm. I love the fall because we're getting a chance to really see how the season is changing. And it gives us a chance to really invite ourselves to be aligned with the change. You said like a lot of us maybe took vacations this summer. Maybe a lot of us went off some of our healthier eating plans. All that is awesome. This is the time to reestablish what we know works and get really excited about dedicating ourselves to it. So we give ourselves permission to move into this month and move into the last quarter of this year under the influence of a renewed sense of purpose and passion for our own self-care and really being a beneficial presence on the planet.
Thank you. Yes. All of the above.
It's beautiful. So, hey, 2 in a row. And I'm going to say, we're going to really knock out a whole bunch of really good content this month. So please stay with us. And if you're feeling like, hey, guys, we'd love to learn more about this or that, throw ideas towards us. This is a co-creative community. We want to all learn together and serve you in a way that you walk away and say, awesome information, that's so helpful, let's go.
Yeah, we're all about it.
Absolutely. So have a beautiful day. Thank you, sweetheart. I love you.
Thank you. Love you too.
And have an awesome week ahead. Peace and blessings. Bye for now.
Bye.